Hi friends, welcome to Kreativ. My name's Jackie. I'm going to take you step by step through a really cute painting today of two koalas. I'm still getting ready, so if you want to grab your supplies, I'm going to be using acrylic paint today, but if you have crayons, markers, colored pencils, watercolors, anything would be perfect. The colors that I'm using today, I'm going to be using turquoise, white, purple, black, brown, maybe two greens. I have orange, I have yellow and pink, so just a lot of colors. So it can really be any color that you really love. In this one here, I have a butterfly and a sun, and I have my leaves all around it. In the one I showed you, I had hearts all around it. So we can, play with our background, and of course, anything we want to add or change to our painting, we can do so. So I'm just going to finish getting ready. Again, my colors, I have white, black, brown, purple, pink, orange, yellow. I have a turquoise and two greens. And I think that's all, but it's really whatever color makes you happy. And I will get started in just a few minutes. Just need to finish getting set up. I hope you had a great morning. I went for a nice walk and went by the beach. So just in a few minutes we'll get started. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Let me get my paint out. Alright, let's see. Make sure you give your paint a little bit of a shake and mix it up to get the pigment and the binders and all that mixed together so you can get some good coverage. Also, when you're painting, when I'm putting the paint on my canvas or on my palette, I kind of think about, the amount, right? So while I'm pouring my paint, I think, well, am I going to be using a lot of this color or just a little? I have the opportunity to, add. So if I need to add a little bit more, I can do so. So instead of crowding my palette to the point where they start kind of, like I say they're pancakes, and sometimes your pancakes kind of all, just become one big pancake rather than little ones. So, think about that. Think about how much paint you're putting on your palette. Of course, you can always add more. You can make the painting your own by changing the colors, making it yours, adding different things. Another little thing you could do is grab like a piece of paper, a scrap piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And kind of map out, kind of draw maybe the shape of your canvas or paper that you're using, and then draw what you want to have on your canvas, right? Maybe you want to add a third little koala, maybe on the back of this one, or maybe you want to have more butterflies in your picture. Practice on a piece of paper before you go up on your actual artwork. So we'll get started in just a moment. Of course, if you know someone who would enjoy painting this, please share with them. And let's see. I'm using acrylic paint. I'm also holding my canvas vertical today. You can turn yours horizontal if you like. Oop. There we go. All right, now we're cooking. Let's see. Whoa, on an angle, but we're good. We're good. All right, so I am going to be using a few brushes. Geez, let's see. Let me get those out. So I have a few different size brushes. I have my paint. I put that on my palette. I know I can always add more. And I have my setup all ready. If you are using like a tabletop easel, I'm going to show you over here. I don't know if you can see that okay. But if you're using a tabletop easel, I like to have my canvas right in front of me and my paint right below it, so I have, you know, easy up and down, looking at my colors, looking at what I'm working on. I also have paper on my table so I can protect my tabletop and also use it to mix colors or try things out or wipe my brush off on, so I don't have to worry about that. I have a paper towel to wipe my brush off as well. I have my cup of water to wash my brush, and I do have a few brushes, all different sizes. When I'm painting, I tend to find that each painting I do, I have a different favorite brush. So kind of get used, you know, just play with your brushes and see what you like. What else do we have? I have my paints out, just the colors that I'm using, just so I have, you know, if I need more, they're right there for me. I also have my apron on. I like to make sure my clothes are protected, and also I like to wipe my brush off on my apron. I don't know if that's a good habit, but it's what I do. And yeah, so my space is all set up. I have an idea of what I'm going for. I may add or change things into it, and that's what's fun about it. So let's go ahead and start. So I'm going to start my first mark. I'm going to use a paintbrush, or choose a paintbrush that I know I can get a really nice controlled mark. This one here I feel very comfortable with drawing with. So I'm going to use a paintbrush that I feel like I can draw with. So almost feeling as though I'm using a pencil or a marker or something like that. A nice control. So this one for me is my drawing detail, or my my mark maker to set up my painting. I also use it to fill in, but I feel comfortable making a nice thin line. I'm going to hold it nice and low like a pen or pencil for great control. I'm also going to think about the edge of my brush. So here's a big flat brush, right? Here is the edge of that brush. Now, I know it's nice and warm out, but let's picture ice skating, all right? So we have our ice skates on our feet, and we're standing on the ice, and we're gliding on the ice, and we look behind us on the ice, and we see a nice thin line that our ice skate has created. Now, with the whole bottom of my ice skate, here it is, I'm going to stand it up on my canvas or on the ice, whole bottom of that ice skate, and I'm just going to slide and glide. And by using very little pressure, I'm going to get a nice thin mark. If I push down more, I'm going to get a big mark. So just thinking about the amount of pressure and also how I'm using my brush, right? Also, this front corner here is where my toe is in my skate. So wherever that my toes go, I turn my whole brush. All right, so just keep that in mind while we are drawing on our canvas. I'm going to start by using a very light blue. So I have turquoise on my plate, but I'm also going to add a little bit of white to it. So I'm having some white on my brush, maybe putting it on the side here, also adding a little bit of that blue. I just want it very light, just so I can paint over it, but just so it's kind of like a pencil mark. Of course, you could use a pencil, but sometimes I see the pencil marks through my paint. And I seem to be more like hard on myself when I'm using a pencil and I erase and all that. So with a paintbrush, we're just going to get it down and It's actually kind of fun too. So here we go. I'm going to start, let me plug this in. All right, there we go. I'm going to start by adding my branch so we can add our little koalas that are holding onto it, or the trunk of our tree. So I'm going to start by adding a diagonal down. First thing I'm going to do though is use my finger to draw that line. And I am going to start from my corner. Maybe if you could see it, it'd be helpful. All right, there we go. So I'm going to start from a corner, but I'm going to move over a little bit. So I found the corner, and I'm going to move over just a little bit. I'm going to make a mark right there. All right, and now I'm going to draw with my finger a slight diagonal down. And one way I can kind of find where my end point is, I can find the middle of the bottom of my canvas, and then maybe move a little bit over this way. So I'm going to find the middle of my canvas. I could totally just make my dot in the middle, or I can just slide it over just a little bit. And I'm going to make a dot there. Now I have that nice start and stop to where my side of my tree is going to be. So I'm going to dip into my white, dip into my light blue, mixing it gently on the side of my plate. Now I'm going to wipe my brush, my flat brush on both flat sides. Whatever you have for a brush is perfect. And I'm going to stand that ice skate, that brush right on up, and I'm going to look where I'm going. I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to draw that line. And I can stop and then start from the other side and go right on up. Everyone's tree is going to be a little bit different, and that's perfect. All right, I'm going to do the other side of my trunk. So I have one side, and now I'm going to do the other side. I just want to have a little bit of space here of the sky showing through. So I'm going to just get the angle. If you put your brush right on that line or hover it right above it, I have the angle of my tree. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide on over, and I'm going to slide down, and I have that angle. So I'm picturing where it is, making a mark. I can do it again, and then make another mark. I have my start and my stop of the other side of my tree. I'm going to go ahead and make that line. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and start building our koalas. So our koalas are made up of a few shapes, and I'm going to stick with using this turquoise. So I'm using a light blue, and I'm also using some white. I'm going to make it a little bit darker just so you can see, but I would just keep this super light so you can go over it later. All right, here we go. With my finger, I'm going to find the placement of the head of this koala here. Now, I want to keep in mind that I want to have another little koala that is kind of getting a piggyback ride up, and his little head is poking up over this guy's, right? So I want to make sure I have enough room. So almost like halfway up in the middle of my canvas, like that's almost going to be where this the big koala's head's going to be. With my hand, if I just put it on here, just kind of showing you how big my koala head is. And then I'm also going to think about the shape. So it's like a circle, but it's also a little squished here and there. So you can kind of play with the shape, practice on your scrap piece of paper. But I'm going to start and allow it to kind of touch the side of my tree. So I'm picturing where it is, kind of in the middle of my canvas, close to my tree, allowing there to be enough space for another little head to pop up above. All right, I'm putting my hand there, just really getting that place holder right there. Perfect. All right, so it's going to be kind of like a circle / oval, and I can kind of do this in little brush strokes, just kind of seeing how big I'm getting. Maybe it could overlap your tree trunk a little bit. That feels good. No right or wrong. Your koala could be a little bit lower in your tree, or higher, or it could be bigger or smaller than mine. All right, so there's my little head. I'm happy with it. And now I'm going to do the side of his body. So I'm going to find the bottom middle of the koala, and I'm going to move on over this way. And that's going to be the start of the back of my koala. I'm then going to do a nice line that's going to go on an angle. And then where his bum is, I'm going to curve it and then bring it right on over to the edge of my tree. So here we go. I'm going to find the bottom of my head of my koala. I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm going to say, okay, that's where my, like the neck or the start of the back of the koala is going to be. With my finger, I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to curve that little bum, and then draw that line all the way over to the edge of my tree. Here we go. Down, curve that little bum, right on over. It almost became like an L, right? All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the top of the leg, which is a curve. So it starts, here's a little bum, move on over, start that curve, and I'm going to go down like that. So right over here, looks good to me. I'm going to use my finger, curve up and down. Curve up and down. So that's his little leg. Now I have to add his arm. So he's holding on to that tree, and his arm is a curve with a rounded tip and then a curve. So we're going to find like right underneath his little chin, right down here. And I'm going to start by just putting that mark right there. I'm going to make a kind of a curved little hook. He's holding on to that tree. I can round his little hand, and then I'm going to add the bottom of his arm. He's cute. He has a big head. All right, let's add those ears. I love the ears, so let's add those. I'm going to kind of think about how I want them to be. Do I want them to be on an angle going up? Do I want them down? How do I want my ears to be? I'm going to stand my brush up right on the edge of that ice skate, and I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to do kind of like big ears. Let's see. Oh yeah. And I'm going to do another one kind of. And if you want to make sure you're getting the same size, a little trick I can give you is just using your brush also as like a ruler. So I'm going to find this measurement here. There it is. Now we can go on this side. And there it is. Awesome. He's cute. All right, let's get our second one in. Continuing with that same color, this is just kind of like our pencil mark. Now, I'm going to have a little oval for a little head right above. And my guy here, his little chin is tucked behind the head of this koala. So I'm going to just do, starting from over here on the side of his face, up and over and back down. Up and over, back down. Think about how big you want it. All right, I see it. I drew it with my finger. Ooh. Oh, he's cute. Look at this little guy. All right, and I'm going to add his little ears. And maybe yours is a different animal. Does your koala have a different animal as a friend? It's kind of reminded me of like a little mouse. And for my little hands, I'm just going to add little circles right above his head. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and fill in our background. So we're going to fill in our background. I'm going to be using, put down my long brush. I'm going to pick up this brush here. It is a little bit bigger. It's still a flat brush. It's just going to help fill in my bigger areas rather than using a smaller one. So pick up a brush that you feel comfortable with and that you know you can fill in a big area with. I'm going to be doing a combination of white and turquoise. I'm going to put both colors right on my brush and I'm going to let them mix right on my canvas. I'm going to fill in all around my koala in this little space here, or koalas. And I'm just going to take my time thinking about the direction of my mark. Thinking about how much pressure I'm putting on my brush. And also just enjoying putting that paint on my canvas. So when you're painting a big area like this, I want to have a good amount of paint on my brush. I don't want any drips unless I'm going for that, but I want it to move nice and easily on my canvas. I'm also going around and kind of outlining as I'm going. I find if I go in and kind of outline everything and then fill in, I still see those like lines, those outlines, and I'm not going for that look. So what I'm doing is working, outlining in small areas. And then filling in. So outline this little ear, fill in, thinking about the direction of my brush stroke, because that sometimes can change the way things look, right? If I'm doing them all in one direction, or if I'm doing them all flip-flop direction, can change the look of what I'm going for. So outline, fill in, plenty of paint. Thinking of, making sure I'm painting the background and not something I don't want to paint, so just kind of lean back or step back from your canvas every once in a while and just double check to see if you're getting everything. If you want to paint the sides of your canvas, feel free. Of course, you can always pause this video if I'm going too fast, or if you want to re-watch something. Also, if you have a question, feel free to send me a message. You can either comment below or send me a private message. You even can send me a picture of your work if you're, have a question, want to change something or add something, or just have a question about, one of the steps. Please feel free to do that. Even on your own artwork that you're working on outside of Kreativ's classes, I'd be more than happy to help you. Ooh, you know what we forgot? We forgot a little foot. That's fine, we can add that. All right. There it is. Great. So I'm going to start by filling in my koala. I'm going to start by making a kind of like a gray purple or purpley gray. So I'm going to be using purple. I'm going to be using white. I'm going to be using a little bit of black. And I can give it a little mix on my plate, or I can let it mix on my canvas. I'm going to give it a little mix on my plate. So I'm making a nice puddle of a gray purple. So I used purple, I used some black, and I used some white. Now when we're using black, we just want to add a little bit at a time. And I had purple, I added a little bit of black, and then I added a little bit of white until I was happy with that color. All right, so I think this is good. I'm going to start by just filling in. This is where I can kind of clean up my edges. Maybe I'm going to grab a little bit more white. I kind of made a mess of my palette. It looks pretty, but they all kind of smushed together. That's okay. So I just grabbed a little bit more white. All right. So we'll go in here. It almost looks like black raspberry ice cream. It reminds me of yum. So I'm just filling in all of my koala. I'll go back in and add any of my details, the inner part of his ears and his little face. But for now, I'm just adding all the main layers first. All right. This little hand. Thinking about my brush, do I need to get pick up a smaller one, or am I happy with this size? Round it out, smooth out those edges. This is where I can kind of change some things if I wanted to. So I'm probably going to lose his arm and the top of his leg when I fill in. And that's totally fine because I'm going to add that outline later, which I will get back. And I'm going to add my little foot now. So right down here, just a little bump like that. There he is. Now my little koala up there, I'm just going to add a little bit more white to my puddle of paint, and I'm also going to add some pink. You could do it the same color, you could do it a totally different color. I just want a little bit of a difference. Starting with that little head. Maybe his little chin's going to be in front of this guy. And then adding his little ears. Again, we'll add all those little details later. Painting, you have to kind of think about like what's on top of what, how to set myself up for the next step. There they are. All right. My next step, I'm going to let them dry, and I'm going to start focusing on my tree here. I really like how I have lights and darks in my tree here. So I have light brown, dark brown. I have some little marks in there, which create some texture for my tree bark. So you can kind of play with that. I'm going to give my brush to wipe or wash my brush. I'm going to, hi Alicia, isn't it cute? I hope you're doing well. I'm just wiping off the extra paint. Oh, look how much paint was in my brush. And now I can give it a nice wash, and then I can add my next paint. So it's gonna be wipe, wash, wipe. So you wanna wipe it off again after you give it a wash, because we don't need any water to make this move, and I don't need any drops or drips of water. All right, so in my tree, I'm gonna play with the direction of my mark. I'm gonna play with the colors kind of just mixing on my tree. And if you notice, I have this little space here, which I'm gonna do as like the tummy or the chest of my koala, and I'm gonna paint that, maybe a white later, but for now I'm gonna focus on my tree. So just kind of keeping in mind where or what I'm painting. So I'm gonna start on my tree. I'm gonna put white on my brush and some brown, cleaning up my edge. Keeping in mind what is what. I'm going to go right around this area, then smooth it out, thinking about the direction. Just taking my time working around. I think I need a smaller brush to get into any of those nooks and crannies. I can definitely switch. So just be aware of your brush, right? Be aware of what size you need. How are you holding your brush? Do you need to wipe your brush off? Is there too much paint on it? Is there not enough paint on it? I'm just kind of going back and adding a little bit of pure brown, just dragging it, pulling, creating a little bit of texture. And now I need to get right in here. I don't think I need to switch my brush, but I could if I needed to. There we go. All right, it's coming along. All right, so I am gonna grab my smaller brush. And I am gonna grab a new palette because I made a mess of mine. All right, I'm gonna add some black paint to my palette. And I'm gonna grab my long brush, a nice brush that I feel like I can get a nice thin mark with, controlled, like our pencil mark like we used in the beginning. I have my black paint, and now I'm gonna add my nose. My nose is almost like a triangle with a rounded bottom, or almost like a teardrop. So I'm going to play with the size. I'm going to play with where it's positioned, which direction is it going in. So I can use my paintbrush to kind of map it out and see where I want it to be. So I think it's going to be at a slight angle here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is say, okay, well how big and how far down, how far up. So I'm going to think about where my eyes are going to go, and then I can decide where my nose is going to go and how big it is. So I pictured it, I used my paintbrush to kind of figure that out. Now I made 2 dots knowing, okay, I think it's going to be about that long. So now I can make a center line. My next step is going to be 2 lines going out. So I'm going to do a line going out, a line going out. I am now going to do a rounded, kind of like a smile. And I can round the top up here. So now I'm going to take my time and just kind of redefine this part, slowing it down. I can make it a little bit bigger. At any time, if you're like, oh, I wish I had an eraser, well, you can grab a little piece of a paper towel and then wipe out the part that you would like to get rid of. Then you have to be patient and let it dry, and then you can paint over it. I'm going to grab a smaller or detail brush for that little space right there, or to add my nose of my baby koala. Same thing, planning it out, thinking about which way it is, where it's going to be, the placement of it. I then can make my start and stop, my center line, my 2 angles out if I like, rounding that bottom, and then filling in and cleaning up. Alright, now for my eyes. I'm going to do circles or ovals for my eyes. For my little guy, I'm just going to do 2 little circles, planning out where they are before adding them. I will add a highlight in those later. I'm also, while I'm here, I'm going to add a little smile. Is your koala's mouth open? And then this koala's eyes here, I'm going to add ovals. Thinking about the placement, thinking about how big. Again, you always can use like a brush as a ruler as well. So if you want your eyes to be the same size, you can just use your paintbrush and measure one and then go to the next. I'm just cleaning up my edges. All right, and now for my smile. Again, practicing it before you go on. Oh, he's cute. And the highlights in the eyes will really start bringing them to life and add a little bit more to their personality. All right. I'm going to give my paintbrush a whitewash wipe. So I wiped, or a whitewashed wipe. Wipe off the extra. Give it a wash, wipe it off. All right, so now it's time to think about our background. We're gonna let our little faces of our koalas dry before we add any more detail. And I'm gonna start with a sun. I'm gonna have my sun coming in from over here. Kind of think about where the placement, if you do want a sun or if you want hearts or whatever you'd like in your background. I can use white and yellow. The white kind of just helps with the coverage of covering the blue. I'm going to do like a smile or a curve, half off the sun is going to be half off my canvas. Again, showing that there's more beyond the edge of our canvas, right? There's more beyond. Now, either with your detail brush or this brush, if you feel comfortable with it, I can make my little rays of sunshine. All right. Now I'm going to go to, what else do I want in my background? I want some leaves. So I'm going to start by adding, just going to dip right on into my light green, and I'm going to start making some leaves poking in. And your leaves can be any kind of shape you like. Leaves come in all different shapes. And I'm just going to fill in as I go. So I made one. I'm just going to kind of jump around with my light green. Then I'm going to do another set with some dark green. I could add as many different greens as I like, or as many different colors. I can add some flowers. I can add different sizes. Keeping in mind if I want to have any other room for anything else. I want to have room for a little butterfly, so I'm keeping that in mind. I think it's going to go right here. Looking at my whole canvas. So I'm going to start with a light green. If you only have one green, you could add a little bit of yellow to a green to make it more of a lime green, or some white to make it a lighter green, or maybe a combo. If your tree isn't completely dry like mine, I might do 2 coats. So if you get a little bit of brown mixed in there, I'm okay with that, but maybe I want it to be a little bit brighter, so I can give it a second coat later. All right, I'm gonna go into my dark green. Let's see if I can. There we go. All right, so I'm going to add now my dark green leaves here and there. They can overlap each other. Again, thinking of what else do I want in my painting? Or really focusing on what you're actually doing, right? Think about the shape of your leaf. Are there multiple colors in your leaves? This is kind of showing that maybe there's more branches that are hanging over, or there's another tree right next to this little guy. Just adding. And I can add my details to my leaves later. Remember, thinking about what layer, which one, what comes next, which one do I add first, how to go about, the idea that I have in mind, how do I achieve it? Maybe one right here. All right, I can add some more later if I'd like, but for now, I think I'm going to switch over to my butterfly. I'm going to give my brush a quick wash wipe, and I'm going to be using orange paint first. Then I'll go in and add all my black detail. Thinking about what color first. So I'm going to do my lighter color, and then I'm going to add my darker color on top of that. It's easier to cover a light color than to go over a dark color, right? So to start, I'm going to dip my brush right onto the orange. So your butterfly could be any color you'd like. But to start, I'm going to use my orange. And I'm going to think about how long do I want the body of my butterfly to be. And that's just going to be a straight line. And also, which angle? Is he flying this way? Is he flying that way? Where do you want him? I'm going to put mine right here. I'm going to start with just a line just like that. Wiping my brush on both flat sides. Next is my wings. Maybe your top wings are bigger than the bottom ones or vice versa. You can always measure, like we've been talking about, to get the same size. Or you can just eyeball it. That looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and fill in. And it looks a little crazy right now, but once I add the outline and go back in with that black and really define the center and all that, it'll look pretty. All right, I'm going to go back and just add a little bit of detail to my koala. I'm going to give my brush a quick little wash wipe. And I'm going to be using pink paint and some white. So a little white, a little pink. I have a clean brush. And now I'm going to add a little bit to the insides of the ears and also to the cheeks. So I have some pink and a little bit of white. And I'm going to add, and I can have kind of like a little jagged edge, or it can be smooth, whatever you think yours should be is perfect. So I have one. I'm going to add the other. All right, I'm going to add those little cheeks, which are just round circles. You can pick up a smaller brush if you'd like, or if you feel comfortable with this one, go for it. And I'll do the same thing up above. And adding those little cheeks. All right. Maybe adding a little bit more pink. All right. It's coming along. All right, so from here, I'm going to start adding some outlines to my koala. So whatever brush you feel comfortable with making your mark. Now, this is a great, when you're outlining something like this, it's a great time to really practice your edge of your brush, the control, think about how you're holding it, and slowing down. Also, your canvas is not stuck on that easel, so whatever feels comfortable for you to have most control, you can hold it on your lap or lay it on the ground, or whatever feels good. So I'm going to take my time and just think about what I want to have an outline. Standing my brush up, the back of the brush pointing at me. Also right here, I could fill that in white if I'd like, or maybe a pink. That's his little tummy. Maybe you want to outline with just like a darker version of your koala, or maybe you don't want to outline at all. And that's fine too. And I'm just going to think about that leg, right? Think about that top of the leg. And think about his little foot. And then think about the bottom of his arm. Those first original marks that we did to create our koala. There he is. Thinking about how I want my little hands of this koala to be. I'm just going to go ahead. Do you want the insides of the ears to have outline, or do you like them as is? He's cute. I think I'll grab my detail brush later and add the outlines here. But I'm going to add the highlights to my eyes, just make those pop. I'm turning my brush around using the back end, tapped it into the white paint. And now I'm going to add a dot here and a dot here. Then I'm going to make a smaller one by using just a little corner of that back. And then I'm going to add a little highlight in that eye there. All right. Going on to my butterfly, adding that black, wiping on both flat sides, adding that center. We did it originally in orange, now I'm doing it in the black. Adding some antennas. I could pick up a detail brush if I'd like. So our detail brush is our liner brush. It's a thin, small brush where we can get really fine detail. I'm going to go ahead and outline my wings. I'm pretending I'm ice skating, so I'm turning my brush. And I'm going to pick up my detail brush because I want to get a little bit of detail in my in the spots on my in my butterfly. How do you want to decorate yours? Do you want hearts, stars, dots? I'm going to add a few dots here. Alright, there it is. And now some detail in my leaves. I'm going to do some outlining, and I'm also going to do some lines, which are the veins in my leaves. You could do this with a different color. You could do this with black, or you could do the dark leaves with your light green and the light green leaves with your dark green. Whatever you like. You can always practice on your test paper. So I'm just doing a center line down, and then I'm doing a few lines going off. I can do 3, 4, I can do a whole bunch. It's whatever I like. Taking my time. I kind of like this part because you slow down. You already have, you know, all the big areas in. This is where it kind of goes, like, wow, when you get all those little details in, everything comes together. So we're really kind of focusing on our mark making, our line, how we're using our brush, what brush we're using. So I'd go in and add all my details to my leaves all the way around. And at this point, I'm just going to kind of look at it and say, do I need to add anything else? Do I want to add their names? Do I want to add a fun word? What do I want to add into my painting? Once you are done adding all your details in, take your time. Sign or initial. I like to do it in the bottom right hand corner, but you can do it wherever makes you happy, in whatever color makes you happy. And then clean up. We have to clean up. So I take my brushes and I make sure I get all the extra paint off of them, and then I'm going to give them a nice wash, and I'm going to lay them flat to dry. It's really important to take care of our brushes. I know it's like you don't really want to clean up at the end, but when you go to paint your next piece of artwork, you're going to be very happy when your brushes are nice and not, well, and not hard, right? So I took good care of them. I'm going to give them a nice wash and let them dry. I'm going to make sure all my space is nice and clean, and then I'm going to hang my artwork up on my wall and enjoy it. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please share with friends, and I look forward to painting with you all again soon. Thanks, friends. Bye.